Greetings, son. I saw you were pretty upset before you disembarked from the Esmeralda. How are you?
Better now, Master Factress. I see you've rejoined the other magicians of water in the capital.
It's been a long time since I visited this palace. I wasn't among the 12 magicians chosen by Zardas to create the barrier of the Valley of Mines before their arrival in Chronicles. I was already living on the island. I had been assigned by my master Satyrus to serve as keeper of the Chapel of Archolos in the city of Chronicles.
And before that assignment you lived in Vanguard.
For most of my life I lived in the capital, until the supreme leader of the Circle of Water, Archmage Satyrus, sent me to the Chapel of Archolos in Chronicles to replace the deceased old water mage who had been in charge of it. But my origins come from Varant, child of curiosity.
I thought the people of Varant preferred to worship Belir.
Most people in Varant follow the cult of Belir, but not to the extreme of the necromancers, seekers, and orcs. Although these days, I wouldn't be so sure. Most of the temples in the Sultanate are dedicated to Belir, and even the caliphates that ruled before the Hashishans worship the Dark God. But the second most widespread religion in Varant is the cult of Archolos. In the largest cities of the desert, there has always been a chapel dedicated to Archolos. Only the cult of Enos is rarely practiced in Varant, and in fact, magicians of fire are usually frowned upon and even driven out by nomadic tribes.
Why is Enos so hated in Varant?
No one knows the answer for certain. According to some myths and legends, an ancient civilization reigned in Varant, experiencing periods of great conquest and prosperity. They worshipped the triarchy of the gods, but Enos disliked their arrogance. Soon Belir corrupted those people, and they began to commit atrocious acts and horrendous human sacrifices. A great civil war broke out between the followers of Enos and the followers of Belir, a conflict that led to countless acts of barbarism. Archolos intervened, and his judgment was the end of that entire civilization. The entire Varant was inundated by a huge wave of water. Only the most humble and deserving were warned in time by Archolos' divine messengers, thus fleeing and saving themselves from the catastrophe. The survivors were those who scattered across the world, creating the populations we know today. Varant was never the same again. Archolos' fury ended. Enos cursed that land with a scorching sun that made it barren and desert-like. Therefore, the people of Varant hate Enos. In the past, the cult of Archolos was also disliked, but over time, some peoples of Varant have rekindled their faith in the cult of Archolos.
What drew you to the Circle of Water?
When I was just a child, I lived in the great city of Bakaresh. I had a little sister by the name of Shea. I worked in the warehouses at the port for a wealthy Varantian merchant. My little sister and I were slaves. Before that, I don't know, son. One day my master decided to abuse my sister. After this atrocious act, we managed to escape and hid on a beach not far from the city. We managed to stay hidden for 3 days, but we were hungry, so we came out into the open to look for food and water. I was walking along the beach looking for fish, until I came across a young water mage. His name was Satyrus. He was curious, so I told him what had happened. Satyrus was kind, and with a spell lured some fish from the water. I invited my sister to come out to meet the young water mage, but just then, some Hashishan soldiers arrived, and with them was my former master. He immediately ordered his men to kill us. Satyrus cast an ice spell and froze them all. He then called down a lightning storm upon them. None of those bastards survived the fury of Archolos. I was impressed by the power of the magicians of water. I asked Satyrus if I could become his apprentice, and he accepted.
Where did you learn magic?
Satyrus led me and my sister to the monastery of Archolos on the western shores of Myrtana. There I became a novice of the Circle of Water. After years of study and magical practice, I became a water mage. Satyrus replaced the monastery as former prior. Years later, he rose to become the new Grand Master of our order.
What happened to your sister?
My sister Shayna lived in the monastery of Archolos in Myrtana for some years. She worked as a cleaner alongside other women. During the celebrations of Archolos in midsummer, we magicians of water were invited by the Baron of the West for Lord Borgin Dastark to attend. We came to Sealden for the celebration. My sister and the other women of the monastery accompanied us. Shayna was fortunate enough to meet the young Lord Borgin during the celebrations. My sister fell in love with the Baron, and the two married. From their union, a son was born. Randall, after some time, Grand Master Satyrus sent me to Corinis to tend the chapel of Adanos in the city. My sister, however, remained in Sealden as Baroness consort.
But Lord Borbin died in the Battle of the Seldinian Plains, fighting against the orcs.
Yes, while Borgin died in battle to defend Myrtana, his son Randall survived being injured in combat. Unfortunately, when young Randall recovered, he was too weak to fight. He was rescued and nursed back to health by a peasant family, but Sealden, left without a militia, was sacked by the orcs. My sister Shayna was killed at the hands of an orc general named Umbrak, responsible for the massacre and sacking of Sealden. Soon after, both the monastery of Adanos and the great city of Geldern were ravaged. The entire province of the west fell to the orcs.
I'm sorry for your misfortunes. But why weren't you chosen among the 12 magicians who created the magic barrier of the colony?
I am not considered among the most powerful water mages in the kingdom. Satyrus, the archmage of our order, chose at the command of King Robar II the most powerful magicians of water in the entire Kingdom of Myrtana, and Zardes did the same with the magicians of fire.
What about Coristo then? What was his relationship with Zardes?
Zardes was the Grand Master of the Circle of Fire, the Archmage in Vanguard, considered by all, even Satyrus himself, the most powerful mage in the world. Coristo, meanwhile, was the prior of the monastery of Enos in Myrtana. Zardes chose Coristo because he considered him the most powerful fire mage after himself, of course.
Who is now the prior of the monastery of Enos in Myrtana, given that Coristo died in the Valley of Mines?
The monastery of Enos in Myrtana was located in the Heartlands province, in the mountains not far from the city of Montira. That region also fell into the hands of the orcs, who wasted no time in burning and pillaging the monastery. The fire mage Charybdo was in charge of the monastery of Enos in Myrtana on Coristo's orders due to the latter's being trapped in the Valley of Mines. Sometime after Zardes' disappearance, the king decided to appoint Charybdo as the new archmage of the Circle of Fire, and now he is the supreme leader of their order.
Now I understand many things, but tell me, Master Vactress, are you by any chance aware of an ancient tome called Visions and Teleportations?
Curious that you ask me that, son of knowledge.
Why?
Yes, I know it. I read it many years ago here in this palace. I didn't like it at all. I found it boring and full of notions about Belier's magic. I honestly don't remember much.
What? What a coincidence. You, of all people, read that book.
Why are you so interested?
The Grand Master of Fire, Charybdo, believes that the tome contains a spell that would allow him to determine where Zardes might be.
I see. Many years ago I borrowed the tome in question from the library of the Temple of Enos here in Vanguard, but after reading it I returned it to the fire mages. It should still be in their temple, but good luck finding it in that large humble library.
I'll see what I can do. Thank you, Master Vactress.
Well, now I'm going to talk to the other mages about the situation with Satyrus and the other mages still in Yarkdar.
Do you think they want to go back to the continent?
I can't tell you what Satyrus' intentions are, but he is still the Grand Master of the Circle of Water. I need to figure out what to do with the other water mages here in the capital. We need to establish contact with the magicians of water who are still in Yarkandar now.
Let me know if you need my help. While I'm a paladin, I'm also a member of the Ring of Water.
May Adanos bless you. You are truly a brave and loyal warrior. You have accomplished much, but many battles are ahead of you. Trust always in Adanos. He shall accompany you in your journey, young hero.
Hey, go on. Any news?
The Esmeralda is filled with paladins and militia. The soldiers are disembarking the crates of magic ore that were on board.
I've spoken with the king and some members of the court. No one suspects the theft of the Esmeralda. For now, we are safe.
Have you found out anything about Zardes?
Perhaps the Grand Master of Fire here in Vanguard might have an idea. But it won't be easy. I need to speak with Girin.
I saw him loitering on the bastion of the harbor. Perhaps he was headed to the barracks garrison.
What will you do now?
I'll continue to fight with Lee. He, Torloff, Wolf, and Bennett may be forming a new mercenary group.
I know Lee has some unfinished business here in Myrtana.
As long as he pays me or makes me rich, he can even ask me to kill the king himself.
Where did you settle?
We booked a couple of rooms at the inn. I'll take them and stay in town for a few days. It all depends on Lee.
Be careful, Gorn. Lee has been chasing the ghosts of his past for many years, and can lead to your death if he acts in a state of madness.
I think you need to talk to Lee and figure out what his plans are, because so far the other boys haven't figured it out either.
Have you considered fighting with the army?
When I proposed the idea, Lee flew into a rage and threw a bottle of wine at me. The problem is we admire and respect Lee. He's a great warrior, but ultimately, no one wants to fall victim to his follies.
It was to be expected that he would throw the bottle at your head. Don't worry, I'll talk to him.
Do it, my friend, and as soon as possible.
Here you are. How did it go with the king?
We are safe for now. And did you visit your woman?
Sure, but not just that. Unfortunately, she's drained my gold coins again.
What? Is your woman a whore?
I'm sorry I didn't tell you, but I thought it was an insignificant detail.
So you used me to get back at your favorite prostitute in Vanguard. And you're supposedly in love with her?
No, of course not. I'm just looking for adventures. Nothing serious. But my friend, if you'd seen an ass like my Guinevere's, you wouldn't be able to keep your sword between your legs.
You seemed so serious on the ship, and then you tell me this.
What's wrong with that, my friend? Enjoy your life while you can. We'll be back on the battlefield soon. And after everything I've seen you accomplish, it will be an honor to fight alongside you in this war.
Did you hear the king is mobilizing the army? Apparently, we're all leaving in a week.
Who shall lead the troops into battle?
The king himself, apparently.
King Robard is a valiant paladin. Even at his advanced age, I don't think there's a more formidable warrior in the Myrtanian army.
Very interesting. It might not seem so on the surface.
I need to find my helmet. When we left for Corines, I forgot it in the armory.
Listen, Kyrian, I need your help.
You need a woman.
No. I'm looking for an ancient tome called Visions and Teleportations. Grandmaster character needs it. Perhaps she has an idea on how to track down outsiders.
But you have no idea where it might be.
Honestly, I might have a clue that leads me to the Temple of Venus here in Vanguard. But what if it's not there? My friend Vatras owned the tome years ago, but he returned it to the magicians of the temple. But what if they had moved it over the years?
I could rummage around a bit in the various libraries around, especially in the Paladins' palaces, in the Bastion, or in the barracks.
I will ask our friends to help us with the search.
Meanwhile, you head to the temple with your fire mage friend. I'll ask Novice Pedro to help me search also inside the palaces of the magicians of fire here in the capital.
If you find out anything, please let me know immediately.
But of course, your majesty.
Go fuck yourself, Kyrian. You really are the craziest paladin I've ever met.
See you later, my friend.
I've searched every corner of the temple library. The other mages have also searched the archives in the undergrounds. The tome you seek is not here.
This is a real problem. Never a simple thing.
I'm hardly surprised anymore. Since the collapse of the old mine, we've been through a lot, but nothing has ever been like Udarath.
I remember Multan. You had that headache that was tormenting you. Lester and Anger had the same thing too.
The malignancy of Belial was strong in the halls of that cursed temple. My powers had diminished so dramatically that I could barely breathe.
I see you better now.
I never thought I'd ever get to visit the great temple of Enos in Vanguard. I honestly never thought we'd make it out alive from the magic barrier of the colony.
I never asked you where you're from, Multan.
I am originally from the Eastern Archipelago. I come from the island of Sendar. I am a son of the Myrtanian nobility. My father was Lord Marvin, the Count of Sendar. He was a vassal of Lord Morris, Duke of Archolos, and governor of the entire Eastern Archipelago on behalf of Myrtana.
How did a young nobleman like you end up in the Valley of Mines?
I tried to kill my father.
What? And why on earth would you do such a thing?
My father sent almost all the inhabitants of our island to fight in the Myrtanian army. Our population was small, and many families were soon orphaned. All this while my father continued to plunder the farmers with taxes and food confiscations. The people suffered because of the King Robar's war. No one could stand my father's oppression any longer. Some friends and I organized a conspiracy to assassinate him, so that I could take his place as the new Count of Sendar. We intended to rebel against the Kingdom of Myrtana and gain independence.
And how would you have defended yourselves from the orcish fleet? At that point, Sendar would have been doomed.
In hindsight, I would have reconsidered many of my bad choices, my friend.
So I guess your plan failed.
Of course, my father wasn't naive. He had eyes and ears everywhere. We were discovered and arrested. My friends were beheaded. My father was furious at what he'd discovered. He sentenced me to the Valley of Mines for a few years. I would later be released and taken back to Sendar. At the time, the magic barrier didn't exist yet. As you know, the magic barrier wasn't originally supposed to reach those gigantic proportions. As a noble, I held a privileged position among the prisoners, and so, I wouldn't have ended up inside the barrier zone reserved for lifelong forced labor.
But then everything changed.
I was trapped in a barrier, along with the mages who had created it. After some time, I began working in the old mine as a miner. One day, Choristo and the fire mages Darmarak and Torres arrived. They had been sent by Gomez to help the Templars burn down a nest of mine crawlers. I had always been particularly fascinated by the Circle of Fire. In Sendar, the prevailing cult was that of Adonos.
And then what did you do?
I followed them into the tunnels. They fell prey to a large group of mine crawlers. The mages and Templars began to fight, but the beasts were too numerous. The mage Darmarak was wounded and lost his magic rune. At that point, I ran and retrieved it. I immediately felt an enormous power coursing through me. My blood was boiling. I waved the rune and real firebolts began to form from my hand. That was how we defeated the mine crawlers and burned their nest. After that adventure, Choristo asked me to join the Circle of Fire. After some time, I passed the test of fire and was acclaimed among the ranks of the Magicians of Fire.
Your father must have been shocked by what you've become.
My father is dead. The leader of the Araxos Merchant Guild killed him. The usurper Lorenzo invaded the island of Sendar with the army of Archolos. My father remained loyal to King Robar II until the end, and paid the price with his life. The Eastern Archipelago has fallen into a violent civil war. The Araxos faction, led by this madman named Lorenzo, has spread the war to all the surrounding islands. I wouldn't be surprised if the entire archipelago has already fallen under his rule.
So have you changed your mind about the war now? Have you forgiven your father?
I was a fool to think we could defend Sendar with a band of weak, starving farmers and fishermen, but my father had blind and foolish loyalty to Myrtana. Sendar is not a land of warriors, but of families of shepherds and fishermen. We were not Nordner. My father should have stopped the king from recruiting all those poor men.
The war has presented us all with difficult choices, my friend. You are young, but you seem to have the wisdom of 1,000 mages. Perhaps you should be the Grand Master of the Circle of Fire.
I intend to ask Grandmaster Charybdo to instruct me in ancient magic, and then, I'll come with you, old friend. You may fight for Myrtana the king, but I will fight for you.
What do you mean by ancient magic?
Magic that doesn't require runes or scrolls to generate. Very few mages in the world have reached that level of power. Zardes, for example, is one of them, but there are others, including Archmage Charybdo of Vanguard. I would like to learn from him.
Will you stay here at the temple a little longer?
Yes, Charybdo will soon convene a council of fire mages present in the capital here in the temple. Today, they will be asking who wants to join the king's army departing for Gotha. And since I know that both you and Girion will surely be leaving, I will volunteer to join the ranks of the Royal Battle Mages.
When you see Charybdo, tell him that I'm still looking for that fucking book.
I will keep looking too, and if I find anything, I will come to you immediately.
Thank you, Milten. Shit, I don't really know where to look for this damn book. So, any news?
Yes, we have some news. I don't think you'll believe what you're about to hear.
Put me to the test. You might be surprised, old friend.
I was walking around the harbor with Lester and Anger. Near one of the ships at the docks, I met an old acquaintance, directly from the castle of Old Camp.
What? Ainos? Who are you talking about?
He was once one of the barons, one of the most influential men in the colony after Gomez. His name was Scar.
What? But I thought I killed him in the corridors of the castle, on my way to free the blacksmith stone.
I know, my friend. I remember. What I never understood was why you used a teleportation stone to the castle of Old Camp. Did you want to commit suicide?
I'll tell you the truth, Diego. In my haste to escape the wrath of Satyras and the other water mages, I chose a stone at random, without looking at the runic inscriptions. Basically, I was an idiot.
I don't know whether to find it funny or tragic. Back in the days of the colony, you were truly a rookie and a bungler.
But then I had a chance to kill a few assholes, including Gomez himself.
Even today, I remain impressed. Gomez was notoriously one of the most formidable warriors in the entire Kingdom of Myrtana. Once a paladin and also Count of Ardaric.
That son of a bitch, Count of Ardaric. Really?
Ardaric is the region most commonly known as Southern Myrtana. The main city is Trellis. Gomez was the lord of those territories.
But it seems that Southern Myrtana has a new count today.
House Krakenhall ruled the county of Ardaric, Aka Southern Myrtana. Before the invasion of the Hashitian Sultanate of Varant, Gomez was the cousin of the current count, Maurice Krakenhall.
What did Gomez do to end up in the Valley of Mines?
Lord Gomez Krakenhall had organized a slave trading network, but many suspect this organization existed even before Gomez himself. He had allowed the Hashitians to sneak into southern Myrtana and kidnap people to sell as slaves. In exchange, he received enormous rewards, so much so that it is known that even today the treasury of Trellis is filled with Varantian gold. Needless to say, at a certain point the situation got out of hand. Revolts broke out, eventually escalating into a full-blown civil war.
And then Gomez's affairs came to light.
At the time, it was Gomez's cousin himself who denounced him to the court of Vanguard, Lord Maurice Krakenhall. At that point, King Robar II quickly organized an army to restore order in southern Myrtana and arrest Gomez. He was foolish enough to meet the Myrtanian army in battle with a meager militia. He was then defeated and arrested by his own cousin. The king condemned Gomez to the Valley of Mines and named his cousin, Lord Maurice, as the new Count of Ardaric and Lord of Trellis.
And what happened to the Varantians involved in the slave trade?
As you well know, your friend Lee was once a paladin, and also one of the most powerful generals in the Kingdom of Myrtana. And after his victory over the Hashitian Sultanate, King Robar II appointed him as governor of Varant. He created his household and made the entire Varant as his barony. Sultan Zubil was demoted to the rank of Caliph of Ishtar. Thus all the caliphates were subjected to the rule of Myrtana, which was represented in Varant by Lord Lee. Those slave traders at the time came from the Caliphate of Ishtar, the domain of the Hashitians. King Robar ordered Zubin to deliver to him the heads of those responsible for the slave trade in Gomez's county. According to some rumors, after a couple of weeks, Zubin sent a cart full of severed heads to Vanguard, with an emissary who prostrated himself before the king of Myrtana, begging for royal forgiveness towards the Zubin's caliphate, and Robar granted it, surely not wanting to spark another war in Varant.
Gomez deserved his fate. But now tell me about Scar.
As you know, I served Gomez and his bandit barons during our captivity in the colony, Scar included. So as soon as he saw me walking down the street to the port, he recognized me and asked me to help him get some gold coins. At that point, I asked him what he was offering us in exchange, and he tried to sell us a fucking stolen book, claiming it was worth all our money combined.
Do you remember the name of the book he was trying to sell you?
Visions and Teleportations.
Holy shit. Where is Scar now?
He is still at the docks. We tricked him by saying we would return with the gold coins to buy the book.
He told us he came here on a ship, built by the citizens of Korinis, who were fleeing the war.
And who organized that escape from the island?
Apparently, a citizen named Garvel, but they were attacked while sailing to the continent.
A Nork galley.
No, a ship full of Varantian pirates. The civilians on board tried to fight, but they all died in the battle. But Scar survived. He said he killed all the pirates, and that doesn't surprise me. He was notoriously one of the strongest warriors in the Valley of Mines. 2 women survived with him, and so the 3 of them continued sailing towards Myrtana, reaching Vanguard.
So women,
Yes, from what I understand, their names are Nadia and Velaya.
Garvel. I remember him. Poor man. He managed to escape his paranoia diety. He took many innocent people with him.
People are growing more and more desperate, my friend. The orcs are no ordinary enemy. They aim to exterminate us, not simply conquer us. Both the citizens and the peasants of Corinas are terrified by the orc attack in the Valley of Mines. Defending the island and the city is far from easy. I sincerely hope that Lord Tegan is gathering enough men to win the battle.
The situation isn't any better on the continent either. However, there's a serious possibility we'll have to flee from here too.
Do you think Myrtana will lose the war?
I don't know. I think a lot will depend on the strategies that the Myrtanian army shall adopt in battle.
So you'll join the king's army as it heads for Gotham, from a prisoner to a paladin of Myrtana. You've come a long way, old friend. In the colony, I never thought I'd see you one day wearing the armor of a royal paladin.
I honestly wouldn't have believed it either. I never would have believed we'd get out of this alive.
And I still can't believe what I saw at the port. It's incredible that one of Gomez's henchmen is still alive.
What will you do now?
We have fought together many times, from the mountain fort full of harpies in the Valley of Mines to Adorath. You've been a comrade in arms of 1,000 battles, and so if you go to war against the orcs, we shall be at your side on the battlefield.
Thank you, Lester. Your words are comforting to me.
And now let's go visit that son of a bitch at the docks.
What does this mean? Are you buying this book or not?
Hi, Scar. Don't you remember me?
Wait a minute. What the fuck? You again? Isn't everything you did in Old Camp enough for you? You almost killed me in those corridors in the castle. Are you persecuting me?
You banished me from Old Camp and you even tried to kill me. What did you expect? A fucking kiss?
I've never agreed with Gomez's decisions. I've supported him as much as it suited me. He's always been a madman. And by the way, my real name isn't Scar. Before they gave me that nickname because of my facial scar. My real name was Marvin. I'm originally from the Eastern Archipelago. I come from the island of Londram.
Are you telling me you really never had any bad intentions in the colony?
No, of course I did. After all, the Valley of Mines has turned men into monsters, and those who were already monsters only got worse. Gomez was a monster even before he ended up in the magic barrier.
You have killed countless innocents. You started a war by attacking the new camp mine.
Gomez and Oro had gone mad. The collapse of the old mine was the spark, but do you think they really cared that much? They had long been planning to exterminate the other settlements for supreme dominion over the colony. He even wanted to proclaim himself king of the Valley of Mines. I've never been a big fan of this conflict. After all, we were all convicts in a very difficult situation with no way out of the barrier. All our decisions had to be geared towards survival, not worrying among ourselves.
By killing Gomez, I have effectively freed the Valley of Mines from you murderous outlaws.
And you also did a favor to me, Vilaya and Stone.
What? So what the fuck were you doing in those corridors?
I was on my way to the castle dungeons to free my old friend, the blacksmith Stone. We've known each other for many years, ever since I was a lieutenant in the Myrtanian army stationed on the island of Archolos.
What? Were we doing the same thing?
For a few weeks I'd been planning my escape along with Stone and Vilayas, my friends. We wanted to flee to New Camp to join these men. I was tired of working with a crazed former paladin. Gomez deserved his fate.
When I saw you guarding the entrance to the castle prison, I thought you had bad intentions.
I was just waiting for a good opportunity for Bullet and the other guards to get distracted. It would have been easy to kill them, but then you came up behind me swinging that huge sword. We fought, and you got the upper hand. At least you did me a favor by killing all those damn bastards.
So you were on my side. I'm sorry I attacked you without asking for explanations.
I was in the wrong place, at the wrong time. Maybe I would have done the same thing.
How did you survive the damage inflicted by the sword of Urizel?
You almost cut me in half with that weird sword you had. I really wonder where you got such a weapon.
It's a very long story. Maybe one day I'll tell you. Just know that that sword is one of the reasons we all survived the colony.
I was unconscious for almost a whole day. I lost a lot of blood. Luckily, Stone and Vilaya, before fleeing, searched for me and found me. They managed to recover potions and medicines from the arsenal of the castle of Old Camp and transported me out of the settlement. They nursed me back to health for a few days, and I survived. When I awoke, the magic barrier was gone.
Did you flee with these men and the magicians of water?
No, they fled the day after the magic barrier fell. Stone and Vilaya stayed behind to look after me. Lee had headed north towards the plains of Korinis. Then we set out on our way, towards the city.
I never met you in Korinis.
You probably wouldn't have been interested in a carpenter's apprentice. We didn't have a single gold coin. And outside the colony, magical wasn't used as a method of payment. All three of us had to find work to survive. I worked as a carpenter and of course, Stone as a blacksmith, while Vilaya cleaned the city hall where Lord Hagen had established his command center.
I have been in Korinis for a year, and we have never met.
You didn't notice us, but the three of us saw you, and followed your every move. Vilaya even witnessed Lord Hagen appoint you to the rank of Paladin. In town, everyone was only talking about you. How you had recovered an ancient artifact of Ino stolen by the dark mages of Beliar. With it, you would then head to the Valley of Mines to slay the dragons. When the news of the four dragons' death spread throughout the city, people began to hail you as the savior of the island and the entire Kingdom of Myrtana. Songs and ballads about your heroic deeds even began to circulate in the taverns.
And why are you in Myrtana now?
Except in Stone's case, Marvin and I had always intended to return to Myrtana. We're both looking for Ivy, my sister, and I in particular am looking to reclaim my old life here in Vanguard.
Vilaya, I remember you. You were one of Gomez's women. I'm happy to see you safe and sound in the capital.
Enos was merciful to me and allowed me to return to my homeland.
Are you originally from Vanguard?
I don't know my true origins. I grew up in an orphanage, here in the capital. I then worked there for a short time, before falling victim to false accusations, and sentenced to the Valley of Mines. For a woman in the Kingdom of Myrtana, there was no worse punishment. Everyone knew that the women sent to the Obarons eventually met agreement.
By Enos. What crimes were you accused of to receive such a fate?
Marvin will tell you this, if he has the courage. I prefer not to talk about it anymore.
I'm sorry, but tell me, how did you get to Myrtana?
We arrived with the ship docked behind us. It belonged to Garvel. He'd finished building it a few days before leaving. He wanted to escape Korinis for fear of an attack by orcs from the Valley of Mines, but we were attacked on the crossing to Myrtana. Poor man. A Varantian pirate cut off his head.
Hi, Nadja. Every time I see you, you look more beautiful. The fire of battle has made you more fascinating.
I killed two of those bastards. But truth be told, without Marvin and his sword, we wouldn't be here today to tell the tale.
My friends told me about the Varantian pirate attack. I feel sorry for the innocents on board. At least you three survived.
It was one of the ships departing from the island. Darvel intended to head for Myrtana while the other was heading for Archolos. If we didn't board, we wouldn't be able to leave Korinis, and given the situation, it was either flee or await the outcome of the Battle of the Valley of Mines which Lord Hagen was about to fight. All men on the island, regardless of faction, were invited to join Hagen's army to fight the orcs in the Valley of Mines. I truly hope Enos is with them.
So Lord Hagen's army is marching towards the Valley of Mines?
He left the day after the Esmeralda disappeared. The militia of Count Larius also left with the paladins. And many warriors from all over the island joined the Myrtanian army. Even Anar's mercenaries, and a good number of the citizens of Korinis.
I will regret for the rest of my life not having been able to fight with Hagen in the Valley of Mines. May Enos guide their swords to victory.
And so it is you and your comrades in arms who stole the Esmeralda. You regret not being able to fight with the paladins, but it is you who betrayed your general.
Our actions were driven by high motivations. We found the Temple of Beliar from where the dragons came. We headed there and defeated the demons of Beliar. But the enemy deceived us from the beginning. One of the most powerful magicians in the world, by the name of Zardis, seized that power and probably fled here in the continent. I am here to put an end to all this. We want to fight and end this bloody war.
I don't doubt you. In Korinis, you proved yourself a brave paladin with a fearless heart. If you felt you had to take a different path than your fellow paladins, I'm sure you had your reasons.
This magician has acquired superior magical powers. Those of an archdemon of Beliar. Creatures capable of destroying the entire world. I have witnessed their power in the Valley of Mines. I have faced two of them, but this time it is different. We are fighting the unknown. I must find Zardis before he can use his powers and kill us all.
How can you be sure he wants to kill us all?
I can't know for sure, but I'm afraid of him. I thought I knew him, but his true motives are unknown to me. That's why I must find him at all costs and protect the kingdom. The king has been informed and supports me.
If there's anyone who can do something, it's you.
But tell me about yourself. Have you left the brothel in Korinis?
I took the opportunity to escape the city. I'd wanted to do it for years, but I'd never had the courage. But Brummer and his thugs wouldn't let me go. They showed up armed at Garvel's ship and ordered me to return to the Red Lantern. They pretended I was indebted to Brummer himself. Marvin immediately understood the situation and, without wasting a moment, leapt onto the dock sword in hand. Before setting sail, we killed both Brummer and his henchmen.
Why have you wanted to escape Korinis for years?
Like Vilaya, I don't know my true origins, but unlike her, I do know something. I grew up in Brahmer's brothel, and he once told me he bought me as a newborn from an illegal slave trade in southern Myrtana. He claimed to free me, but in the end I always lived like a slave. I had to obey Brahmer's orders and never had much freedom of movement. My earnings and those of the other girls were paltry compared to Brahmer's.
I'm sorry I abused you. I had already the information I needed about the swampoid, but I still took advantage of the fact that I had paid for your services.
You are a man. You men only want one thing from us women, but I enjoyed the time spent with you. I realized you'd never been with a woman. You're different. You've proven on more than one occasion that you have a good heart.
So you came to Myrtana to rediscover your roots and start a better life.
It would be nice to start a new life somewhere far from the war. But everywhere you go there are factions vying for power, and innocents pay the price. I hope that all of this shall end one day.
What can you tell me about the blacksmith stone?
Stone set sail from Korinis on another small ship. He and another group of civilians headed for Archolos. My old friend is originally from those lands, from a village called Silbak.
I understand, but you haven't answered me yet. Why did you decide to come to Myrtana?
This is a really long story.
I have some time. Tell me.
I'm sorry we never had a chance to get to know each other well in the colony. Perhaps that was the darkest period of my life so far. I was in a constant state of sadness and self-confusion.
I can understand.
As I told you, my real name is Marvin. I come from the provinces of the Eastern Archipelago, from the island of Londram.
I've heard of it. It's located not far from Archolos, the largest island in the Eastern Archipelago.
Correct. A few years after the outbreak of the Orcish War, we learned that the Orcs had defeated the royal fleet in the Battle of the Eastern Archipelago. This effectively paved the way for an invasion on the island of Londram, which unfortunately happened. My brother Yorn and I managed to board one of the last ships leaving my homeland, but when we reached the western coast of Archolos, the crew revealed themselves to be a band of pirates. They stole our belongings. Some were killed, and almost all of us were thrown into the tide and swam towards the shore, and some of us didn't make it.
Did you mean to start a new life away from the war on Archolos?
My brother and I thought that Archolos had the best defenses in the entire Eastern Archipelago. If there was an island capable of defending us from the Orcs with its armies, it was Archolos.
But you said you were a Myrtanian soldier. It doesn't seem like you wanted to lead a peaceful existence after all. What prompted you to join the King's army?
A few days after our tragic arrival on Archolos, Yorn and I had settled in with my uncle Kurt. He had already lived in the village of Silbak for many years. He had married a peasant woman from those lands. Unfortunately, he was widowed, had no children, and never remarried. However, he continued to live in his wife's village. During our stay in Silbak, something unexpected happened. My brother Yorn was kidnapped.
Your brother kidnapped?
I searched Yorn for months. I headed to the city of Archolos to pursue a trail of clues. At that point, I decided that to find the informations I needed, it would have been useful to join one of the factions of the island. I decided to enlist in the army of Myrtana, and after numerous adventures, I became entangled in a series of dangerous political plots aimed at overthrowing the Myrtanian rule over Archolos.
And then you managed to find your brother?
Yes, I found him dead in a coffin, in a secret cellar in the basement of a dock shack.
Have you discovered the reason for everything?
My brother Yorn had been murdered because he was suspected of belonging to a secret organization of the Magicians of Water.
The Ring of Water? Really?
How do you know about the Ring of Water?
I am part of it too.
I was also a member for a time. I worked alongside a warrior named Kessel and a water mage named Riordian. We served the Magicians of Water from the monastery of Adonis on Archolos.
Riordian is one of the 12 magicians who created the magic barrier of the Valley of Mines.
Exactly. But while I was part of the Ring of Water, my brother was the victim of a conspiracy without knowing anything about it. He was kidnapped by the henchmen of one of the richest and most powerful men on the island, the usurer, Volker.
The architect of the first uprising of Archolos, together with Lord Ulrich Wolfson. I've heard about that story.
Correct. He was organizing an army of mercenaries that would later collaborate with House Wolfson to drive out the Myrtanian army from the island of Archolos. The Ring of Water wanted to prevent the outbreak of a civil war, and since they could not touch Count Ulrich Wolfson, Lord of the Castle of Wolfstein, they targeted Volker and even attempted to assassinate him, failing miserably. Then the usurer himself targeted all those who belonged to the Ring of Water, even those who were only suspected of belonging to that organization. My brother was tortured, but failing to gain anything. Volker's men killed him.
But why your brother?
I'll never be completely certain, but I found clues that made me suspect that our Uncle Kurt, to gain favors from Volker, had sold him to the usurer as a spy of the Ring of Water. But how my uncle knew about the Ring of Water is beyond me. In any case, my Uncle Kurt also met a grim end. I found him under mysterious circumstances in the sewers of the city of Archolos. His throat had been slit.
Holy shit. I'm sorry for your misfortunes. But tell me, how did you join the Ring of Water?
When I found my brother Yorn in that coffin, I was immediately attacked by a patrol of Volker's mercenaries. At that point, a warrior named Kessel, who had been following my actions for some time, intervened. He helped me kill those bastards, and then, informing me of the ongoing conspiracy, he invited me to fight with him, joining the Ring of Water, and I, driven by a desire for truth and revenge, accepted.
And at the same time, you were also a soldier in the King's army. You remind me of myself.
Officially, I was a royal soldier under Captain Roderick. We served Duke Morris, governor of the entire Eastern Archipelago, on behalf of King Robert II, but I also worked with Kessel and the Water Mages.
And then what did you do?
At that point, I helped Kessel and Mjordian gather evidence of the conspiracy against the Myrtanian rule. We managed to find some interesting evidence. I also managed to identify those involved in my brother's kidnapping. Among them there was a woman named Ivy, Ulaya's sister, but they believed that only the Grandmasters of the Circle of Water had the political clout to accuse powerful men like Volker and Ulrich. The Water Mages surprisingly didn't ridicule our insinuations, but they had always preferred political neutrality, and so they didn't want to intervene with the Myrtanian government. Kessel and Riordan believed that only a great sign from Madonnas could stir the Archmages' consciences. They therefore proposed to organize an expedition into a cursed fortress, to recover an ancient artifact of Adonnos lost for over 1,000 years, the sword called Peacemaker.
I heard that Archolos was attacked by orcs anyway.
At the same time, Archolos was attacked by an orcish army that landed in various parts of the island. The Myrtanian army, under the command of Captain Roderick and Lord Grayson, one of the king's emissaries visiting the island to report the situation to Vanguard, organized a counterattack. I fought with the king's army in various parts of the island. I killed many orcs, proving my valor in battle. Finally, after a month of fist fighting, we managed to defeat the orcish army and drive them out from Archolos.
Did they promote you?
Captain Roderick appointed me as lieutenant, and I became one of the most feared commanders on Archolos. But it was Lord Grayson who made me a tempting but very dangerous proposition. He claimed my skills were worthy of the Paladin Order, so he asked me to return with him to Vanguard, to ask the king himself to appoint me as Paladin. Grayson believed my place was in command of the armies of Myrtana, not in a distant province wasting my time. Despite these dreams of glory, I didn't seize the opportunity. I returned to Kessel and Mjordian to lead that expedition I told you about.
Did you punish those responsible for the kidnapping of your brother Yorn?
I killed them all, except Ivy, with whom I developed a deep bond. She worked for Volker under constraint, and I didn't hold her entirely responsible for what happened. And yet, she also helped me gather evidence against Volker and Ulrich. Ivy was an orphan, originally from Varant. Volker had taken her under his wing, training her to become an assassin for him.
Tell me about the expedition.
We organized a group of warriors and workers. Together we entered Castle of Vardol, a fortress cursed for centuries, the site of battles in an ancient and forgotten war between the Kingdom of Myrtana and the Kingdom of Archolos. I honestly don't know much about it, except that a Myrtanian battle mage, named Vigilio, burned the entire fortress with a rain of fire. According to ancient stories, the sword of Adonnos, the Peacemaker, was supposed to be kept inside Vardol. The Peacemaker was said to be a legendary weapon, infused with the power of Adonnos. It was the sword of the first king of Archolos, King Volsak Wolfson. He was the founder of the Kingdom of Archolos. His sons attempted to expand into the Eastern Archipelago, but were defeated. A few centuries later, the Kingdom of Archolos was defeated and conquered by King Maximus III of Myrtana, but the Myrtanian rule only lasted 100 years. House Wolfson led a revolt, then drove out the Myrtanians, until King Robert II reconquered Archolos, once again in the name of Myrtana.
And then you found the sword?
We found it, but it was useless. The sword had a conscience of its own, and resisted use. Froze anyone who attempted to use it. For offensive purposes, Kessel lost both his mind and his faith in Adonnos, and he committed suicide in the halls of Vardol. Riordan hypothesized that the Peacemaker was not a weapon for killing, and that King Volsak actually used another weapon in combat. He believed that the artifact of Adonnos represented neutrality, and could not be used for violent purposes. So we sealed it away, and took it out of the castle. But as soon as we stepped out into the outer courtyard of the fortress, we found ourselves facing an entire battalion of the army of Archolos. Lord Ulrich Wolfson was waiting for us. His men disarmed us, and aimed their crossbows at us. Ulrich demanded that I hand over his ancestor's sword. I frightened agreed. I thought he would freeze to death by using it. The problem came when Ulrich swung the sword without a hitch, unleashing its magical power. It was clear that the sword was blood-bound to House Wolfson in some way unknown to us.
Are you telling me that Ulrich was a chosen one of Adonnos?
It is possible. Moreover, the legends of his ancestor, King Volsak, would seem to imply this. At that point, Riordan cast a spell on me, and teleported me to the monastery of Adonnos. I then told the magicians of what had happened, but shortly thereafter, we noticed that the watchtower at the center of the island had been lit, a sign of invasion, or imminent extreme danger. Rushing there with one of the magicians of water, we discovered that the Myrtanian soldiers guarding the watchtower had been massacred by Auric's soldiers, and we noticed from afar that the city was ablaze. Volker opened the gates to Auric's troops, who in large numbers defeated the Myrtanian army, and massacred almost the entire population, engaging in rape and pillage. Riding in the city, I witnessed horrors that even today, I struggle to forget.
I remember that Myrtana won that battle.
In a rage, I drew my sword and charged into the fray, alongside the few soldiers of the army of Myrtana still fighting in the streets in defense of the civilians. We fought in every neighborhood of the city, until we managed to break through the enemy lines, and reach City Hall. We arrived too late. Auric had already killed Governor Morris, and was about to kill Captain Roderick as well. Suddenly the water mages finally arrived, and with their help the tide of battle turned in our favor. At that point, to my great surprise, Auric Wolfson challenged me to a duel, and the two of us began to fight alone. Auric was significantly stronger than me, and had a magical sword. I was lucky. While we were fighting, he tripped on some steps, the sword slipped from his hands, then he broke his ankle.
He defeated himself.
He was so furious. He was screaming sentences against Myrtana the whole fight. He was so mad that he even forgot to watch where he was stepping. At that point, Auric having been defeated, his men fled. Many were killed or arrested by the Myrtanian army.
What about Volker?
Volker had already realized shortly before the water mages arrived that the battle was tipping in our favor. Fearing death, he fled into the city sewers. At that point, I gave chase. To my surprise, I found Ivy, who was also chasing Volker out of revenge for her own motives. We decided to join forces and face the user a little further ahead. I'll tell you the truth, I didn't expect Volker to be a great warrior. He almost defeated me. Ivy stabbed him in the leg with a dagger, but despite this, Volker was still capable of fighting very well. After about 10 minutes, I managed to disarm him. At that point, he begged me to spare him in exchange for wealth and power. I decided I'd rather take his head. The sword I have with me once belonged to Volker.
What happened next?
Auric Wolfson and the few survivors of his troops were condemned to the Valley of Mines. The survivors of Volker's army, however, were all executed. I finally gave my brother Jorn a proper burial, and also to Uncle Kurt. Then I remained in the city, in a beautiful villa in the upper quarters. Ivy and I fell in love, and for a while we lived together in our house in Archolos. After almost 2 years, however, she mysteriously disappeared, leaving me a letter in which she explained that she intended to look for her sister in Vanguard, and that essentially it couldn't work between us. I fell into a state of infinite sadness from which I never recovered, and after that, it got even worse.
What do you mean?
Some powerful men in Archolos, inspired by Auric and Volker's crimes, began plotting to take control of the island, and possibly the entire eastern archipelago one day, and so they wanted to get rid of me. I had defeated Auric and Volker, and I posed a huge threat to them. Among them was the Araxos guildmaster, Lorenzo. He managed to obtain false evidence accusing me before the city court of conspiring with Auric and Volker. Lorenzo managed to have me convicted, but Captain Roderick, as temporary governor of the Eastern Archipelago, declared that he would never have allowed me to be executed. At that point, the judge re-evaluated the sentence and condemned me to the Valley of Mines, even allowing me to carry Volker's sword with me. In effect, I was a privileged prisoner. Roderick returned my sword to me and put me on the first ship to Korinis. Along the way, I was transferred to another ship where I later met Gomez.
Wait a minute. So you and Ulrich met again at the colony?
Of course. We even made peace for a while. He and his men even helped us in the old camp uprising when the magic barrier was created, but he always dreamed of rebuilding his army and waging war against Myrtana. Meanwhile, Gomez had other, more enticing plans. We simply wanted to enrich ourselves with the royal treasury and live a good life, as much as that could truly be considered a pleasant existence.
Did you kill him?
He probably killed himself. Choristo had told him about the focus stones that we used to create the barrier. Auric, thinking he could use them to destroy the magic barrier of the Valley of Mines, gathered the last of his warriors and headed into Orcish territory in search of one of those focus stones. We haven't heard anything more from him. He's probably dead.
If they went in the direction of New Camp, then I think they all dead. At the time, I entered a small crypt with Meal 10, where I found one of the focus stones. Guarding the place were some skeletons, and an undead warrior wearing an armor similar to the one you and Gomez wore. Meal 10 gave me a powerful spell, which we used to kill the undead in one fell swoop. Maybe they were killed by orcs in an ambush.
It certainly was. In the end, that bastard got what he deserved. His worst nightmare. An inglorious end.
But did you get to Vanguard before us?
Yes, a week before your arrival. Maybe because you stopped on that cursed place you and Naja were talking about earlier.
What are you going to do now?
I plan to look for Ivy. I've never stopped thinking about her. I need to clear things up with her, about our past together.
My friend Diego says that you have a book called Visions and Teleportations that I am interested in.
It's worth a lot of gold. If you want, I can sell it to you for 1,000 gold coins.
And how do you know it's worth so much? You don't seem like an expert at all.
A very powerful man convinced me to steal it for him. He said he'd pay me 10,000 gold coins, but after that, he never showed up again, and we need gold. We don't even know how to buy food.
A very powerful man.
He claimed to be a count or something. I'd never seen those soldiers before. Vilaya, who lived in Vanguard for a few years, says they are men from the province of southern Myrtana, the army of Trellis.
I've heard of the Count of Ardari. I may have even glimpsed him in the king's throne room, but there were several nobles present. But why would such a man seek your services? And why on earth would the Lord of Trellis want to have a book stolen?
He claimed that I was the perfect candidate to steal this book, since no one here in Vanguard knew my face.
I'll have to investigate. But do you realize you're trying to sell stolen goods to me? To a paladin of the king? Don't you see the armor I'm wearing? Are you an idiot or what?
I'm desperate, man. I'm running out of gold. Aside from Volka's sword, I have no decent equipment left. If I were to leave the capital during these times of war, I wouldn't be able to defend myself much, especially against orcs.
Give me that damn book, right now. In exchange, I'll get you some good equipment, and help you find this woman you speak of.
Very good. I accept. Take the book.
So, still hanging around? Did you find your fucking helmet?
Not yet. I ate some excellent wild boar, and drank a whole bottle of wine from southern Myrtana. One of the best in the entire kingdom, along with the one from Archolos.
I see you're still having a great time in the capital. Anyway, I found the book I was looking for.
It's best to fight when you're drunk and on a full stomach.
If you say so. I never eat or get drunk before a battle.
You should try it. The orcs would shit themselves with terror.
Listen, Kiri, you must do me a favor.
And Paladin Girion is always here to serve you, Great Dragon Slayer.
This man here with me is named Marvin. And like me, he was a former prisoner at the colony. You will get him the armor of a paladin.
Yes, of course. Very funny.
I'm not joking.
Are you crazy? You meant to give one of our armors to this guy. Who the fuck is he?
A great friend of mine. And since I actually helped you get back in Myrtana, now you'll help me. And you will fetch for him together with me.
Excuse me, but why do you meant to give him a paladin armor? He's not one of us. What the fuck are you supposed to do?
I must help him find a woman. It's a long story. Maybe when we have more time, I'll explain it to you. But for now, you'll have to trust me and pretend nothing happened.
Why don't you give him some militia armor? Or any generic armor?
If we ever have to travel outside the city, it's best to be as well armed as possible these days. Paladin armors are the finest in the kingdom, and if we ever need to access places reserved only for paladins or mages, I certainly can't drag him around Vanguard dressed like a peasant.
Alright then, I'll see what I can do.
Here, I got you what you need.
By nose, will you give me a paladin armor? Really?
If we ever have to fight together, I prefer you to be well armed.
This is more than I could have imagined. You are a man of your word.
There's still one thing that intrigues me.
Ask, and I will give you the answers you seek.
Earlier at the docks, Vilaya said you know why she ended up in the Valley of Mines.
I can understand why she doesn't want to talk about it. It's my fault.
Your fault?
And this is a long story too.
I want to know who I'm dealing with.
After the old camp uprising organized by Gomez and me, we became, as you know, the most powerful people in the colony. Even the king himself had to come to terms with us given the situation. The magic barrier played a nasty trick on the plans of the court of Vanguard. I wanted to take advantage of our temporary situation of de facto absolute power over the king himself, to find a way to get Ivy back with me, by force.
Wait a minute. Did you want Ivy to be sent into the magic barrier?
I was still in love with her, and I thought I could offer her a comfortable life in the castle of Old Camp, with me. Gomez and I were the most powerful men in the Valley of Mines. The underlying truth was that I didn't want to spend the rest of my days alone, in the company of criminals without honor.
You were no better than them.
I've also been a victim of many situations, but it's true. I've made countless mistakes in my life.
But what does Vilaya have to do with all this?
I threatened Gomez that if he didn't help me in my quest, I would lead a revolt against him, and kill him without mercy. Although he was also a great warrior, having been Count of Southern Myrtana, and a member of the Paladins, he feared me. He knew what I had done on Archolos. He wouldn't dare contradict me, and risk a civil war. and so we sent a letter to King Robar. In it, we threatened him that if he didn't hand over Ivy to us, we would immediately cut off all supplies of the magic ore.
The king probably didn't even know who the fuck Ivy was.
Exactly. We even tried sending a sword of parchment, where I had a portrait of Ivy made, and despite having accurately described Ivy's appearance, they ended up sending the wrong woman. It was Vilaya, Ivy's twin sister.
What the fuck? So the woman who was put on that platform was Vilaya, just before I was thrown into the magic barrier that day. And you're the one who had actually got an innocent woman convicted.
At that point, Gomez ordered me to drop the matter, as we couldn't risk being cut off from the world. King Robar would never grant such requests again. He would starve us instead. I had to give in, and because of my disinterest, Vilaya fell into Gomez's clutches. He abused her for almost a year, and I did nothing. This lasted until I planned our escape from the castle. I had to save Vilaya from Gomez's madness, and I had to save myself from that whole situation too. But then you arrived, and you did what I should have done. May the gods forgive me for everything I have done.
Maybe I was wrong to get you a paladin armor.
Vilaya has long since forgiven me. After the Valley of Mines, I promised her I would take her back to Vanguard, and always protect her, and I kept my word, but I still haven't vanquished the ghosts of my past.
You will have to tell the truth if you ever meet Ivy again in your life, or I shall kill you with my own hands this time.
The time of my dishonor has come to an end. I shall tell her the truth, whatever the cost, and I will defer to her judgment, whatever it may be.
But first we have to find her.
Do you already have any ideas?
Let's split up and gather informations in different districts. Vanguard is a large city. In the meantime, I also need to visit the Grand Master of the Circle of Fire here in the capital. Most likely, we'll have problems far worse than the magic barrier, or the dragons. We may be on the brink of the greatest and most violent war ever fought. The power of Belair has finally found its way into the world of Morgrad, through the necromancer Zardes.
I remember rumors circulating in the colony, that Zardes had converted to the cult of Belair, betraying the Circle of Fire. Rumors circulated in Khorinis that Zardes had also survived the Valley of Mines, and that he had his undead minions build a black tower in the mountains of the island. Are you telling me these rumors were true?
I worked with him in the Valley of Mines to find a way to destroy the magic barrier. We discovered that the barrier had been tampered with by an archdemon of Belair, worshipped by the orcs as Kroshak, and in the swamp camp as Tsib.
I remember. I was also in the main hall of the castle, when you reported to Raven about the death of Iberian in that strange ritual, and so it was you who killed the archdemon, thus breaking his evil bond with the magic barrier of the colony, destroying it in the process. Man, you truly did a heroic deed, but also a big mess, you know.
I know. In fact, after I killed the sleeper, the entire temple collapsed on my head. Zardes, meanwhile, had also fled to the mountains of central Khorinis, where he had a black tower built. He managed to save me, teleporting me to his tower. And now that I think about it, that must have been a teleportation spell far more powerful than any we know. Now I understand. That was ancient magic.
Yeah, but then came the dragons.
They too must have had some connection to the sleeper. And so I teamed up with Zardes again to slay the dragons and find their source. We discovered they came from Eodorath, a remote island in the Sea of Myrtana. We took the Esmeralda and headed there to kill the servants of Belair. And I found myself face to face with another archdemon of Belair, this time in the form of an undead dragon.
The fact that you're here, talking to me, tells me you survived. Did you kill the archdemon of Belair?
Yes, but Zardes teleported to the temple where I and the dead archdemon were, and he cast a spell that absorbed the power of the archdemon of Belair. It's a power no mortal had ever possessed before.
I'm beginning to understand why you haven't returned to Khorinis, but how do you know Zardes might be on the continents?
I can't be sure of that yet. The book Visions and Teleportations you had with you should contain forgotten knowledge. It concerns teleportation magic spells capable of materializing in a place or person, simply by thought, without using a runestone. Something Zardes is indeed capable of doing.
Yeah, but you're not a magician, and paladins are sometimes only capable of using the rune magic.
From what I understand, the Archmage of Vanguard is a position held by the Grand Master of the Circle of Fire, considered the most powerful in the Kingdom of Myrtana. So if anyone can help me with this matter, it's Grand Master character.
I didn't question the Count of Adarik when he asked me to steal that book. I was afraid they might discover my identity, and as I told you before the docks, the enormous reward promised drove me so mad that I actually infiltrated the Temple of Enos. I spent almost an entire night searching for that book without being discovered by the Fire Mages.
My friend Laras would really like you. In any case, I'll have to have a conversation with the Lord of Trellis.
So, what are the plans?
As I said, we'll split up. Start looking for informations about Ivy. I'll do the same after I deliver the book to Grandmaster Character.
I'll start asking around. Vilaya lived with Ivy for a short time here in Vanguard shortly after our separation on Archolos. Maybe she might know where to look.
Meet me at the harbor in a few hours and put on that armor. See you later, Marvin. Greetings, Grandmaster Character.
Hey, it's nice to see you again, young paladin. What news do you bring?
I found the book Visions and Teleportations. Here it is, Master.
Well done. You did well. Now you have to give me a few days to thoroughly study the ancient teleportation spells we discussed.
A few days? Really?
I hope I wasn't too optimistic. It would take an ordinary mage months to understand and learn from such a tome. Infused with the magic of Belir, practicing ancient magic is far from simple compared to runic magic. It doesn't come from objects blessed by the gods, but from the magical nature of humans. Each of us has magic within us, but developing magical powers is another matter entirely.
I hope to understand something more, Grandmaster.
I would like that too, young paladin, but finding where Zardes is hiding won't be easy at all. He could be anywhere. You might even have to leave the continent. Zardes could be anywhere in the world of Morgrad.
Do you think you will be able to use the magic described in the book?
I must succeed, or we will be at the complete mercy of evil. I must succeed, for the salvation of our kingdom. May Innos guide my knowledge.
Can I do anything to help you, Grandmaster?
No, young paladin. This is a knowledge that I must learn on my own. But if I find anything new, I'll send for you immediately.
On my way back from the King's Castle, I stopped to ask around about Ivy. I visited a few shops in both the trade and port districts. So far, no one seems to know of a woman named Ivy with the appearance you described. Are you so sure that when she left Archolos, she headed here to Vanguard?
Why would she lie to me? It's true that she had a sister here in the capital. Vilaya lived with Ivy in Vanguard for several years.
But if they both had no memory of their origins, how the hell did Ivy and Vilaya meet?
From what I understand, they both seem to be from Varant, perhaps from the former Hashishin Caliphate. Before it reverted to the Varantian Sultanate, the people of that part of the desert have lighter skin than the other inhabitants of Varant. This would explain why Ivy and Vilaya are light-skinned.
Vilaya told at the docks earlier that she was originally from here. From an orphanage in Vanguard.
Once in Archolos, Ivy told me how she and her sister Vilaya were taken as infants to an orphanage in the capital of Myrtana. They were then abandoned on the edge of the entrance. This was the version that was told to them. After a few years, a man named Volker showed up at the orphanage. He paid a large sum of gold coins to the orphanage to adopt the two little girls. Vilaya recalls that Volker specifically asked for both Ivy and herself. She doesn't know why Volker specifically saw them both. That day, Vilaya had accidentally gone out to play with some poor street children. She hadn't returned to the orphanage until the next morning. However, Volker managed to take Ivy away. She then grew up on his estate in Archolos, later becoming his spy and cutthroat. Ivy once told me how Volker revealed to her that her origins came from Varant. But how Volker knew this, I have no idea.
Did Ivy ever try to find out more from Volker?
Ivy told me that Volker had always refused to tell her anything more, claiming it no longer mattered. Over the years, Volker had the decency to remind Ivy of her sister Vilaya. She meanwhile grew up in Vanguard. Ivy had told me several times that one day she wanted to return to Vanguard to look for her sister Vilaya. I didn't think, however, that in doing so, she would abandon me too.
Were you against it?
Of course not. I would have followed her to the realm of Belir, if necessary. I loved her, and would have done anything to make her happy.
What if Ivy had left for Varant many years ago?
If she had ever went to Varant, it wouldn't have been since many years. Vilaya told me that before ending up in the Valley of Mines, she had met her sister, Ivy, here in the capital, and for several years they lived here in Vanguard.
If the sisters lived together here in Vanguard, then Ivy must have known of Vilaya's fate in the colony.
Vilaya claimed she was kidnapped during the night by the king's militia. Her sister may have thought it was a simple abduction, or a voluntary disappearance. However, from that moment on, no one can say what happened to Ivy. She certainly must not have taken it well, but I don't know if she knows the reason for her sister's disappearance.
When Vilay arrived in the Valley of Mines, didn't they send a letter or something?
I don't know who organized the kidnapping. We are certainly talking about powerful men in King Robust's court. In any case, no, they didn't send any letters. They thought they had kidnapped Ivy's per my request, not Vilay.
This story is getting pretty complicated.
A few hours ago, I was walking through the central districts of the city, and I saw a familiar face again. A man named Lutz.
What can you tell about him?
When I was a soldier in the militia in Archolos, Lutz was a Myrtanian soldier, part of a group of a crown envoy with the mission of reporting to the king about the political situation in various provinces of the Kingdom of Myrtana, and to collect provincial taxes. At the time, they also arrived on Archolos, and remained there for several weeks. Lutz worked for one of the members of the Myrtanian Great Houses, the chief of the royal envoy for that expedition, Lord Grayson of House Tronta. They both knew Volker and Ivy, and of course me too.
That Gracie you told me about before. Wasn't he the one who wanted to take you to Vanguard to become a paladin and send you to the front?
Yes, however, as I told you, they left without me. Even though they tried to look for me, I instead lead that expedition into the castle of Verdal, and immediately afterward the first uprising of Archolos broke out, and all the other subsequent events I told you about.
If this Lutz you speak of is here in Vanguard, what happened to that Lord Grayson?
I honestly have no idea where he is today. From what I understand, he continued to work for the royal court for several more years.
You could try talking to this Lutz about Ivy. Since you said that this guy knows who we're talking about, if she's been here in the capital for several years, she might have met someone you know in common.
I don't have much hope, but I'll give it a try. Lutz was a simple soldier back then. Now, I've noticed he's wearing a paladin armor too. I've seen him at one of the taverns in the central districts of Vanguard. I'll go there and talk to him, hoping he'll recognize me, and not be hostile after so many years. Once on Archolos, I helped him with a woman named Martha, with whom he was having an affair. Maybe now, he'll be the one to help me.
If he asks you how you became a paladin, you'll explain that you assisted me in slaying the dragons in Korinis, having obtained pardon for your past crimes, and for demonstrating exceptional battle prowess in service to the Kingdom of Myrtana. Lord Hagen has welcomed you into the ranks of the paladins. You then join me on my mission to Eodorath.
Well then, this will be our official version of the events.
Know that the armor you're wearing, you will have to earn it.
I will do my best, Commander. Lutz, is that you?
Do we know each other? Wait a minute, you look familiar. Marvin, is that really you?
Hello, old friend. I'm glad you're still in one piece. If the orcs hadn't killed you, Martha certainly would have, if you hadn't gotten back together with her.
Thanks to you, Marvin. Martha and I left Archolos together. We got married in Vanguard. We have had 2 children in these years. Together we bought an old inn here in town and restarted a business. Well, let's just say it was more Martha's idea. I remained in Grayson's service. He shortly thereafter had me appointed to the Order of Paladins. At least I get to eat great food and drink delicious wine completely free. But Martha has little time for me when she works. She's always behind that counter serving our guests.
So Grayson is still alive. And what about his brother Admiral Ansgar?
Both Grayson and Ansgar are alive and are here in Vanguard serving the royal court. Ansgar remained in command of the Myrtanian fleet, or what remains of it. His ships patrol the Sea of Myrtana, attempting to prevent attacks by the Orcish galleys. Unfortunately, with little success. Vanguard has already been attacked 3 times by small Orcish flotillas. It's likely they're sizing up our fleet, considering whether to invade by land or sea. Or at least that's what Grayson and Ansgar think.
The paladin armor looks much better on you than the soldier armor you wore in Archolos.
But tell me about yourself, Marvin. I see you're also wearing the armor of a paladin. What happened to you? I've heard all sorts of things about you.
Forgive me if I decided not to come with you to Vanguard at the time. I was preoccupied with some matters too important for me, and I was consumed by a sense of revenge which prevented me from seizing the opportunities that presented themselves before me.
I must admit, I would have been more confident with you at our side in battle against the orcs, and Martha probably would have been too. You are a formidable warrior. You led the charge against the orcs who wanted to invade Archolos, defending the entire island. You deserve to be a paladin of Myrtana even then. And Grayson understood that.
That if I had come with you, Archolos would have fallen into the hands of Auric Wolfson and that bastard Volker. Perhaps it was Adonoswell that made me stay on the island. Or at least that's what the magicians of Water believed after our victory in that battle.
Stories of your exploits, of how you defeated both Auric and Volker, spread to the heart of the capital. For a while you were the talk of the town. I know Grayson even sent you a letter of invitation intending to introduce you to the king. Why didn't you come then too?
I wanted to live in Archolos with Ivy. Do you remember her?
Yes, of course. Wasn't the woman who worked for Volker? I remember seeing her a few times even with you.
After the first uprising of Archolos, Ivy and I became engaged. She had helped me greatly with some personal matters, involving the kidnapping and subsequent death of my brother Jorn. We had formed a bond, first as comrades in arms, and then as lovers. After the rebellion against the Myrtanian government, we began living together in a villa in the upper quarters. I became a lieutenant in the militia, and was effectively the second most powerful man in Archolos after Captain Roderick. But after almost a couple of years of living together, Ivy began to distance herself from me. She spent a lot of time alone, until she abandoned me, leaving me a letter in which she said she wanted to go to Vanguard, in search of her sister, and probably also of her past.
There were rumors that Roderick had sentenced you to the Valley of Mines, and then nothing more was heard of you since. What happened to you, Marvin?
Rich and powerful men in Archolos wanted to find a way to get rid of me, and one of them was Lorenzo, the leader of the Araxos Merchant Guild, and given his ambitions he wanted to isolate Roderick as much as possible from his most trusted men, namely me. And so he and his sycophants managed to create fake documentary evidence to accuse me of conspiring with Ulrich and Volker. They managed to have me convicted by the city court, but Roderick refused to have me executed, and had the sentence commuted to exile in the Valley of Mines.
I know who that son of a whore is. He now rules Archolos and also other islands in the eastern archipelago, like Landram and Kellen, after massacring our soldiers and Roderick with his cursed mercenaries. Was the second uprising of Archolos. Lorenzo also proclaimed himself king of Archolos, and also of all the rest of the eastern archipelago. He knows, sooner or later Myrtana will take revenge for all these massacres.
Well, in hindsight, if Roderick hadn't exiled me, I probably would have died too. By a strange twist of fate, Roderick saved my life. I know that Lorenzo massacred almost the entire city in the second uprising of Archolos. If you survived that rebellion.
Of our armies stationed on the island of Archolos, only 3 survived. A paladin named Runa, and the soldiers Sol and Semba. From what they said, they managed to escape in a small boat that was moored in the harbor of the city. They are now on the front, at Gotha.
I'm glad to know that some of those I knew in Archolos survived the Araxos Merchant Guild rebellion.
And so you also survived the Valley of Mines. But how did you become a paladin?
You know that paladin, who arrived on the Esmeralda, the one who told the king he killed the dragons of Corines, who everyone now calls Dragon Slayer.
Yes, in Vanguard, no one talks about anything else.
I fought alongside him, and aided him in his quest. Lord Hagen was impressed by our deeds. He became a paladin commandant, while I was accepted into the ranks of the paladins. Later, along with other warriors and mages, we defeated the servants of Belir at the Temple of Eodorath, and now we have come here to search for the necromancer's Ardis.
Ah yes, rumors have come from the royal court that the old Archmage of Vanguard, Zardes, survived the Valley of Mines, years after his mysterious disappearance, and that he is now a necromancer of Belir.
The rumors are all true, but I also came to the continent of Midland for another personal reason.
What are your goals, Marvin?
I'm looking for Ivy. There are unresolved issues between me and her. I need to find her and clear up some issues from our pasts.
You kept me on edge for almost an hour. Marvin, you're such an idiot. You could have told me right away that you were looking for Ivy.
Have you seen her here in Vanguard?
Honestly, I've never wondered why she's in the capital. If you hadn't told me, I'd never have known. However, I've seen her a few times at the King's Castle talking to Princess Ailsworth and Grayson. I have no idea what she does for them. I prefer not to meddle more than necessary in court affairs. I'm a man of war. Political plots have little interest for me.
I'll request an audience with the princess to learn more. I'll also speak with Grayson. Thank you, old friends.
Do it, Marvin. And if you need help, count on me. But know that we will soon leave for Gotha. And from there, we will try to break through the front lines of the orcs and retake Myrtana.
What can you tell me about Myrtana?
It's the largest city of central Myrtana, the province called the Heartlands. When we returned from Archolos to the continent, Myrtana was still in our hands. The orcs only had the province of the Westmere in their clutches. Their king, Khan, had established his base of operations in Geldon, and he had turned Sildan into a camp for his entire army, nearly destroying the village. But then the orc king reorganized his army and marched against Myrtana. There was a great battle there in which I also took part. King Robot personally led the army, fighting alongside us paladins on the front lines. I never thought the king could fight like that at his age. I don't think I've ever seen anyone more skilled in combat than our king. We attempted to save the city, then halt the orc advance, but Myrtana fell. However, we managed to inflict heavy losses on the orc hordes, buying precious time to reorganize our forces, and since then the front has been in Gotha.
Have you fought in other battles as well?
Before Myrtana, I'd only participated in small skirmishes and ambushes. That was even before Archolos. But when Grayson made me a paladin, I found myself facing a major battle for the first time. What I saw at Myrtana, I shall never forget.
Now you risk facing another one though. I don't think Martha is so keen on it.
Marvin, fight by my side. With you as my comrade in arms, I would feel safer on the battlefield.
We will defeat the orcs together, old friend, and we will return to Vanguard as victors.
Hyenas, we must win and drive our enemies from Myrtana. Not just the orcs, but also the Hashishans from Trellis. If we find the orcish army, then the Varantian army at the gates of Vanguard, it would be an absolute catastrophe.
Don't worry, Lutz. I'm sure the king and his generals will figure out something to win the war. Enos won't abandon us.
Every now and then, when you're in Vanguard, come visit us. Food and drinks are always free for you, Marvin. May Enos guide your sword, old friend.
Anything is possible. If I don't have enough problems.
I know the woman you're talking about. Ivy is one of our most trusted spies, but she doesn't work directly for me. And honestly, it's been a long time since I've seen her.
Do you remember roughly the last time you saw her?
I had asked Lord Grayson Tronda to gather strategic information for my father, the king. We had received word that a large portion of the Varangian fleet of the Hashishans was scheduled to depart from the harbour of Bokaresh on some sort of mission. Grayson then told me he would discuss the matter with his brother, Admiral Lord Ansgar Tronda, and that both of them would provide me with detailed information as soon as possible. Ivy was with them that day. That was almost a month ago.
Do you think Grayson or Ansgar sent Ivy to take care of this?
I couldn't tell you. My father, the king, was worried about a possible Varangian invasion on the coast of Timoris, south of Vanguard, and he tasked me with gathering information about it. At this point, since you're here, I think I can ask you to speak with Grayson and Ansgar, and take care of the matter.
Where can we find Lord Grayson and Lord Ansgar?
In the northern harbour district. The shipyard of Vanguard is located there. From what I understand, they're dismantling some orcish galleys that attacked us in recent weeks and months. The materials recovered from the demolitions are then reused to repair our warships.
Thank you, Princess. We'll get this Ivy thing sorted out as soon as possible.
May Enos be with you, paladins.
I know both Grayson and Ansgar. We crossed paths in the past in Archolos.
Great. Then you go to them immediately, and get the informations we need.
Aren't you coming with me?
I need to discuss some matters with my comrades in arms. I'll meet you later at the northern gate of Vanguard. We'll take stock of the situation there.
See you later. Lord Grayson, Lord Ansgar.
Greetings, Paladin. Wait a minute. I know you.
It's me, Marvin.
By the beard of Enos, it really is you, Marvin. I'm happy to see you again in this life.
I survived the Valley of Mines, and I helped Lord Hagen's paladins slay the dragons of Korinis. Impressed by my deeds, General Hagen welcomed me into the ranks of the paladins of Myrtana.
I'm not surprised. Hagen saw in you what I had already seen in Archolos. Even then, you deserve to be a paladin. Now you are, where you truly belong.
I arrived in Vanguard on the Esmeralda, the ship we used to fight the servants of Belir, on the island of Idorath.
Ah yes, I heard about your mission from your paladin friend, in audience with the king in the throne room in the castle of Vanguard. And so, in the end, Zardes is alive, and has betrayed the Circle of Fire.
The rumors are true. Zardes has acquired greater demonic power, and we don't know what he's capable of. We must find him before it's too late, perhaps for the entire world of Morgrad.
Great, all we needed was a mad power-hungry dark magician. Apparently it wasn't already enough to have all the factions in the kingdom fighting among themselves for absolute power.
Did you hear about my arrest for conspiracy and treason in Archolos, a couple of years after Ulrich and Volker's rebellion?
Truly ridiculous accusations. I tried to ask the king to pardon you, but at the time King Roba was very angry with me for failing to detect concrete signs of treachery by House Wolfson. This then sparked the first uprising of Archolos. After that catastrophe, the king removed me from my post as crown emissary, placing me in the service of the capital's administration. Nowadays, I only deal with that, and I run a spy organization with my brother Aska and Princess Aelswith. And so, the king no longer took my advice into consideration, and obviously, without taking me into consideration, let alone those who had helped me in Archolos.
I understand. At that point, the king would have suspected everyone, even someone like me. Forgive me for not joining you at the end. I have my own reasons.
I was very certain that you didn't leave with us at the time. But if you hadn't stayed in Archolos, Ulrich and Volker probably would have won the battle and taken the entire island. But why did you refuse the invitations I sent you afterwards?
I didn't want to come to Vanguard, to become a paladin, and command the armies of Myrtana in battle. My ambitions were much more humble. I wanted to spend my life in Archolos, with Ivy.
With the woman who worked for Volker? Really? Did you know that she's now here in Vanguard, and works for me and my brother Ansgar as a spy?
Yes, the princess told me and my comrade in arms. Ivy lived with me in Archolos for a couple of years. Then she left me, leaving me a letter saying she wanted to go to Vanguard, to look for her sister.
We know. When she arrived in Vanguard, she soon requested an audience with me and my brother, explaining who she was and who she had worked for. She also told us that she had spent a couple of years with you. Given her skills as an assassin, Ansgar and I considered recruiting her into the Myrtanian army as a spy.
Does she know what happened to her sister Villa yet?
No, no one knows. Not even Ivy herself. From what people say, she seemed to have disappeared many years ago. But why do you ask? Do you know what happened to her sister?
It's a long story I intend to tell Ivy. The princess has tasked us with helping you with Ivy's mission, so we need to find her as soon as possible.
Ansgar, reveal to Marvin where you sent Ivy.
It's nice to see you again, Marvin. So, Ivy has been sent south of Vanguard to the coastal region of Timoris. It's said that she's been secretly meeting with some Varantian emissaries of the Hashishans' army for some time now.
The princess revealed to us the reason for these secret meetings with the emissaries from Varant. But where exactly did she go? And where does she meet these Varantians?
We don't know. We simply assign the missions to our spies, but how they carry out the work is their business. We care only about the outcome.
Ah, yes. The typical Myrtanian mentality.
Unless she betrayed us. You'll find her either in the coastal villages of Kiktan or Adia, for sure.
Any advice you can give me?
You might try asking Lord Wensum of House Loran. He's the son of Count Copper Loran. His father is currently the king's right-hand man and commands the troops of Vanguard, where his son oversees the coastal region of Timoris.
I see you're all working hard here.
We demolish enemy ships, whether orcs or other factions. With the proceeds, we repair our own warships.
I didn't know you and Grayson were brothers, and members of a Myrtanian noble house.
Grayson and I are members of House Trond. Our elder brother Edgar commanded the Myrtanian fleet in the War of Harkon. He then became governor of the Southern Islands. I have been less fortunate than Edgar. I have lost my most important battles. The Battle of the Eastern Archipelago is the greatest defeat the royal fleet has ever suffered, and I remain responsible.
I heard that Agon fell a few years ago.
The Duke of Setarif, Lord Ethorn of House Markland, son of the previous King Ethorn V, led a rebellion like the one that occurred on Archolos years before. The only difference is that the rebels won, for Brother Edgar died in battle, and his family was never heard from again.
I'm sorry for your losses.
We had a wonderful grandson. Edgar's son was named Russell. I know he became a paladin shortly before fighting his father's last battle, for Brother Edgar was defeated and killed by Ethorn in single combat at the Battle of Silver Lake. Sadly, I imagine young Russell followed him to the realm of Enos. It's well known that the Saterifians took no prisoners that day.
I've heard that Ethorn has proclaimed himself King of Argon, and is leading campaigns to conquer all the southern islands.
The chief of the Araxos merchant guild, Lorenzo, is doing the same in the eastern archipelago.
Do you think that if Myrtana defeats the orcs, could she face the armies of Argon and Archolos?
I don't think the current Myrtanian army can defeat even a Nordmerian army, let alone take on powers like the Southern Tavern, the Kingdom of Argon, or the Eastern Archipelago, and then all the other factions coming from the other provinces of the Old Kingdom. And in any case, I'm starting to doubt we'll make it out of the Orcish war alive.
We paladins shall fight for Myrtana to the death.
I didn't think you were so patriotic. In Archolos you seemed more interested in my brother Grayson's rewards than anything else.
Life has taught me a lot, and now I've found my path.
With you by our side, we'll definitely have an advantage. May Enos protect you always, Marvin.
Greetings, my lord.
Greetings, paladins. I'm Lord Wenzel. Sorry for the long line of peasants seeking an audience with me. Since my father, Lord Cabrin, took command of Vanguard's army, he left me in charge of these lands. He's now filling that role temporarily, until Lord Aegon's return.
Luckily for you, we are the last ones for today, it seems.
People are getting more and more scared these days. I don't know how many come to me for some bullshit, or for having spotted an Orcish or Varantian ship.
Do you think the orcs for the Varantians might have an interest in attacking the villages on the coast of Timoris?
I doubt they're interested in any farms or fishing huts. All we have is what you see. The coast of Timoris is no wealth whatsoever, but for its fertile land and a sea full of fish is always a wealth by the grace of Enos.
Wise words, my lord.
About what brings you to Cape Gun, my lords?
We were tasked by the court of Vanguard to find one of the royal army's spies. We know that she was headed here to the coastal region.
Do you know anything about this spy?
She's a young woman. Black hair, like a shadow. Black eyes, like the night. And pale skin. Her name is Ivy.
You seem to describe the appearance of a Western Varantian woman, the part of the desert that has always been dominated by the Hashishans.
In fact, the woman in question appears to have Varantian origins.
No, unfortunately, I have no idea who this woman you are talking about is. And I don't know anyone who looks like that here on the coast of Timoris. And I know almost everyone in the region. There aren't many of us here living on the coast. We all know each other. I think a girl like the one you described wouldn't have gone unnoticed.
It might be hidden outside the villages. That's why no one has seen her.
That's possible, but unfortunately, I don't know where a lone woman could be hiding here on the coast.
We'll try asking around, and in the local taverns.
Maybe try to visit Ergia. There are a few more people living there than at Cape Dawn.
Thank you, Lord Wenzel. May Enos protect the people of the coast.
May Enos illuminate your path, brave paladins.
If you're looking for a whore here in Ardea, you won't find one, let alone in my inn. For that sort of thing, there are the brothels in Vengard. We're good people. We follow the precepts of Innos, not like those pigs in the capital.
You're not taking me seriously. Have you ever seen a woman like I describes?
Of course, Lord Paladin. You know how many whores I've seen in the capital. Like I said, if you're looking for a woman, Vengard is the place for you.
Why do you treat a paladin of Myrtana with disrespect? Aren't you afraid? I might have you arrested.
My friend, afraid of you? Perhaps once. The Kingdom of Myrtana has fallen, and it's all your paladin's fault. Trade is in shambles, and few merchant ships visit the coast of Timoris. Our village, once far from the battlefields, is now in panic over an orc invasion. Or worse, a Varantine invasion.
I am different from the others. I've made mistakes in the past, but now I've found myself again. And I can assure you that I will always fight to the death to defend the innocents.
A paladin playing at being a hero? May Innos really save us all.
Please tell me if you've seen the woman I'm telling you about. It's important to me.
No, I haven't seen the woman you're talking about. Few people live in Ardea, and here everyone knows each other. I really have no idea who is this Avi you're looking for.
Fine. Leave it alone. I'm sorry for bothering you.
So, you want a beer or something else?
Do you have a Nordman Ogginfog?
By the flames of Innos, of course. I have it. The best alcohol always comes from Nordmar.
A toast to all the loved ones I have lost along the path of my life.
What the fuck?
Sorry.
Are you drunk?
Not entirely. The Nordman Ogginfog is always a delight.
I didn't know you were also a professional drunkard.
I haven't discovered a fucking thing in this shitty place.
I had no doubts about this. Even the captain of the local militia knows nothing.
It's me who has an idea now.
You drank an entire Nordman Ogginfog. What the fuck would you possibly have?
The people of the coast of Timoris seem to be more afraid of Varanjon ships rather than the orcish ones.
Quite obviously. The orcs aren't interested in sheep pastures and defense as fishermen. They still have a shred of honor, I guess.
At most, they'd enslave the local population who'd survive an orcish invasion, as they've done in every province of the kingdom they've conquered. But the Varantians don't stop there. They pillage and raid, and they hate the Myrtanians more than anyone else.
Where are you going with this, Marvin?
The people of the coast must have surely spotted some Hashishin ships, patrolling the waters bordering Varant. Probably some of them approached the coast of Myrtana, and on one of these warships, there are probably also these famous Varantion emissaries, with whom Ivy would meet, to buy strategic informations.
Do you suggest we stake at the coast, to watch for any Varantion warships approaching the shores of Myrtana?
It's the only trail of clues we have.
By Enos. But do you know we might have to stake out on the coast for days? And anyway, nothing at all might happen.
I propose to stay here in Ardea for a couple of days. If Adonos wants, I'll meet Ivy again. Otherwise, I'll understand that fate has its way.
All right, but you'll be the one doing the night shifts.
Agreed.
Marvin, Scar, or whatever. You again. And now what the fuck do you want? It's already the second night you've woken me up. I hope you have a really good reason this time.
Put on your armor and draw your sword. Here we are. I've spotted a Varantion warship.
Are you sure? What flag are they flying?
They're flying the heraldry of House Hashishin. I don't know how much time we have. We have to hurry, damn it.
Fuck. I'll get my equipment, and we'll head straight to the beach.
Ah, Here she is, the Myrtanian woman.
I see you brought soldiers with you this time. Thought we agreed that the negotiations were between you and me alone.
Don't worry, woman. They are trustworthy men, and won't report anything about our negotiations.
I have the gold you requested last time, but I want more detailed information this time. Otherwise, I'll pay you half of what we agreed upon.
Smart girl. Are you sure you are not a Varangian woman?
Some of the blood that flows in my veins has its origins in Varant.
How can you live in a shitty place like Myrtana? Don't you feel the call of the suns beneath your feet?
I was taken away from Varant when I was still an infant. I couldn't remember what it felt like. And now give me the informations I'm paying you for, Hashishin.
Sure. What a mystery. The fleet of our great Sultan Zubin will not attack these coasts. It will only patrol the southern seas and transport support troops to Trellis.
Support troops? For Trellis?
The Sultan has decided that the Hashishin forces will join the Orcs in an official alliance to wage war against the Kingdom of Myrtana, or at least what remains of it.
But why would Zubin ally himself with the Orcs? What do they both gain from this alliance? Hasn't your Sultan already been satisfied with the conquest of the county of Ardarek?
I don't know the details of the agreement, but our Sultan has aided the Orcish hordes in the past, defeating the Myrtanian army in southern Myrtana, conquering the city of Trellis. Surely Varant will have something important to gain from all this. I am sure that Belia will favor the Hashishin Sultanate.
Will you transport your soldiers only by sea?
No, most will arrive by land. They'll cross the pass of Varant. They will reorganize in Trellis and march towards Myrtana to join the Orcish army of Kinkan.
You will lead this great army?
I cannot tell you who will command the Varangian army in battle. Our Sultan will make his decision known very soon. He is now too old to lead the Hashishin's troops in war.
I'm not satisfied with the informations you have. You know it a little.
I don't care what you think. I have nothing else to say to you for now. And now, you'll pay me the gold you owe me, you fucking Myrtanian whore.
Fine, but next time I want you to tell me more details about your army's invasion.
You poor fucking Myrtanian whore. There won't be a next time.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Our agreement ends here. My Sultan has ordered me to kill you and bring in your head.
What? Are you telling me that everything you've revealed to me so far, in all our secret meetings, was orchestrated by Zubin himself?
You were naive to think that me, the captain of the Varangian army, would ever betray his homeland. I spit on you Myrtanians.
Was everything you've told me so far all false?
No, I did really tell you the truth.
But why?
It amuses me to know that from the realm of Belia you shall watch your people being slaughtered, without having been able to help them in any way.
You're fucking crazy.
And now prepare to die, you Myrtanian whore.
I still can't believe what you're saying, Marvin. What you did to my sister Vila is unforgivable. We haven't seen each other in almost a decade, and now you're telling me this.
I understand your anger, Ivy. I've been a piece of shit. My desire for you lead an innocent woman to her doom in the Valley of Mines.
And you haven't even done a damn thing to protect her. You should just take off that armor you're wearing. You're not worthy of the Paladins. You are a man without honor.
I'm not really a member of the Order. The Paladin sitting by the fire behind me did me a favor, providing me with an equipment that wouldn't impede my access to certain areas of Vanguard. This allowed me to investigate any classified information held by the Myrtanian army and by the royal court. and to protect myself in case of traveling outside the capital. And indeed, we managed to uncover a trail of clues that lead us to you.
And now, besides telling me about my sister's misfortunes, you've also deceived half of Vanguard, going around armed like a paladin. Enos should just incinerate you here and now.
If you want to kill me, do it. I'm not afraid of the realm of Belir, where I deserve to end up, but my intentions remain unchanged. I loved you, and that's what drove my reckless actions.
Do you think this can be a justification for what Vilay has suffered at the hands of that piece of shit of Gomez, the famous former traitor as Count of Southern Myrtana, and after a self-proclaimed bandit baron of a remote region of Corinas?
I have been for worse than Gomez himself. Just kill me and end all my suffering.
Killing you would give me no pleasure, and it certainly wouldn't change what my sister Vilaya has been through. You deserve a life of suffering for what you did to her and me.
Death would have been better, rather than living having met you again, and knowing you weren't mine.
I don't belong to anyone, Marvin, especially not to a coward like you.
Since you don't intend to send me to the realm of Belir, give me a second chance to regain your trust. Let me gain redemption for my actions.
Only Adonis knows what I'll decide about you in the future. Tell me where my sister is, immediately.
Vilay is in the capital with that other woman named Najid. We arrived in Vanguard with others, sailing from Corinas. But as I told you, only the three of us survived the pirate attack.
Good. Now we'll rest until tomorrow morning. Then you and your friend will escort me to Vanguard.
What do we do with the dead Varantians?
Cut off their heads, place them on that boat they came ashore in, and direct it towards the warship moored far away in the Bait.
Holy crap, really?
It will serve to send a message to their cursed sultan, and they will think twice before attacking Myrtana.
And what about the bodies?
Throw them into the sea. Those sons of whores shall make excellent fish food.
You're pretty angry with those poor guys. Why not give them a proper burial? They were warriors after all. The other Varantian soldiers aboard the ship won't see them return, and will surely figure out what happens.
You're an idiot, Marvin. That ship in the distance is full of Hashishan soldiers. We have to hope that the severed heads of their comrades will terrify them enough, so that they won't disembark and look for those responsible. We would risk to start a battle between the few militia on the coast of Timoris and that Varantian regiment aboard the warship. The coastal region would be left without soldiers to protect it. Almost all the remaining royal troops are in Vanguard and Gothic.
Then how can you be so sure that the Varantians, seeing the severed heads of their comrades, won't instead decide to land anyway and attack the villages?
I have no certainty, but if we don't do it, we don't have even a slight hope that those Hashishan bastards won't land and attack. The Varantian army is not well informed about the defenses of the coast of Timoris, but if those Hashishan soldiers land and survive to tell the tale in Varant, we're doomed. The Sultanate would overrun these shores and march its entire army all the way to Vanguard.
I understand, Ivy. Very well then. We shall do as you suggest.